99% of talented athletes never make it, and after years of coaching and research, I can tell you, it's not because they lack talent, it's because they believe the wrong things about what it takes. So in this video, I'm going to break down the real reasons why talented athletes fall off, and more importantly, what you can do to stay on track and actually reach your potential. I'm Dr. Christy Scanlon, an academic and coach, and I've spent years studying athlete mindset and performance. And honestly, what I'm about to share comes from patterns I've seen over and over again, both in my work and in the athletes I've worked with. So like always, let's break this down, and don't forget to press subscribe for weekly videos. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so I just want you to reflect back on your time as an athlete, or even your time in general, and you might relate to other people that might be in this situation. You might have come across that person that's going to make it, and then all of a sudden they don't actually fulfill their potential. And there's loads of stories of this in a range of different sports where we think that person is going to make it to the top. However, they don't seem to grasp or understand what the physical and psychological demands are to get to that level. So the first point is the talent trap, and this is a real important one because you might see this element of early success. Because what you'll find is people will tell you that you're great and you're the best at certain things, which, you know, to some extent might be true. However, you might need to push your boundaries further when it comes to that larger scale of understanding your ability and how that might impact your performance. So pressure is very much aligned with this point around complacency, and many athletes avoid situations that might make them fail. So my point being is failure on your journey is important, and pushing your boundaries to that failure point is also important as well. Now, that doesn't mean that you're exhausted all the time, but it's just reflecting on the activity that you've done and starting to understand how you can push yourself further despite the external pressure. What you find with people that don't necessarily achieve longevity, they avoid pressurized situations because they get comfortable. They avoid the mental skills required for high stake competitions because they feel that they've made it. Now, this very much aligns to some of the things that we've said around complacency, because if we're complacent, we don't think that we need to do any more. In actual fact, we always can improve as individuals, and stretching that improvement is gradual. You know, it's not going to happen instantly, but you just need to reflect on what it is that you can improve and how you can develop yourself further. So this is really important to understand, and I think it's important for you to reflect upon as an individual. Each week I create videos around these areas, so if you're new here, please click subscribe down below. There's weekly videos to support you, to educate you, and also in the link in my bio, I do a newsletter to support you within your journey. So if you feel that's something that's relevant for you and you need a little bit of support, feel free to go ahead and press those links down below to support the channel. Now, there's an image on the board that I wanted to show you in terms of what we could relate to based on that phrase complacency. And you might have heard of these two phrases before around growth mindset and fixed mindset, and how a growth mindset is actually important. So when we think about athletes in general, and the most famous athletes and the athletes that we admire and we want to be like, you might come across them having a growth mindset because they're always thinking about what they can do to improve, but also thinking about what they can psychologically do to develop themselves further. And you might think about this in terms of leadership, what your preparation looks like, what does your sleep look like, what does your routines look like, how do you handle negativity, how do you handle comments that are made by external factors, fans, or doubts that might creep in when you are performing. So a real key point then, based on the graph that we've seen, and the important factor here is to start to think about how we can develop ourselves in terms of effort, strategies, and feedback. A fixed mindset assumes that talent is unchangeable and we're just going to be talented. But actually, research across a growth mindset is very much associated with adapting to motivation, resilience. Now, some generic advice might be, you know, stay confident or be positive, but they don't actually really translate into behavioural change. And implementation intentions can sometimes be a little bit challenging within that when we think about specific actions. Pairing our growth mindset with our plan, we might think about how we can focus on our breath, our preparation, our outlook, what we're going to do if X, Y, and Z happens, and that enables us to create a response automatically under pressure. The next task is to think about this element of consistency and habit, and consistency can be challenging because we need to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and that might be challenging in the sense that we may not see reward instantly, and we might doubt ourselves whether the practice or the training or the effort that we're doing is actually paying off. Success is very minimal when you think about the landscape and the journey of an individual. It's this moment here and everything around it is fluctuated towards that moment. And consistency and habits are really important within that. Now, when we look at why people might drop off or why they might not become an athlete, it's because they can't keep consistent, and the habits can be a challenge within that. And there's loads of examples of when, motivation might dip and they might feel off and they might lower their standards, and all of a sudden it becomes a habit that they might not put the effort in as much as what they should. But actually, it's important for you to keep those high standards, and personality traits really influence that in terms of what your training looks like and how you can push yourself further. Are you eating clean? Are you sleeping properly? Are you recovering properly? Are you learning from positive people rather than negative people? And I think those habits will enable you to become better, and through consistency and time and practice, it enables you to be successful. The two images on the board I just wanted to show you based on a couple of athletes that are succeeding today. And if you asked me a few years back whether these athletes would perform to the level that they are, there might have been some doubt around their performance and who they are and what they're trying to achieve. The athlete on the left is Scottish international McTominay and Marcus Rashford. Both come from Manchester United, and it seems to be a running joke that anyone that leaves Manchester United goes on to do well. And these two players epitomise that. And when designing this presentation, I was thinking, well, what is it that is happening that enables them to be at such a big institution and big football club, but not necessarily perform well, but when they move on, they have this freedom and autonomy to be very successful. And this can relate to you, and I think it's important to note this in terms of your environment. And there's loads of examples where bad coaching, bad parenting can actually impact your ability to become successful. And the comfort zone might relate to this element of environment, because talented athletes often stay in environments where they feel good, they become better through that. However, if you are not challenging yourself or putting yourself in environments that are enabling you to kind of express yourself or perform or develop an understanding of stresses within sport, then that might expose weaknesses and lack a little bit of adaptation to go and achieve. Obviously, don't put yourself in an environment where you limit yourself, but it's important to note what you can do to support yourself. What is it that you are doing within your club or your practice that is pushing you further? And if you can be in a situation where that happens, growth will occur, and then that will enable you to develop yourself and experience breakthroughs when it comes to that elite stage. This can very much relate to this area around identity and self-worth, because if I'm at an elite football club, I might be seen as the person that performs or plays for that football club or plays for that organisation or represents that group. But in actual fact, that might be limiting you. Sometimes, especially in the adolescent and youth development phase, people tell themselves that they are an athlete, and that's okay, but that's all that they have. And the minute they start to see a little bit of frustration or they can't really improve, it starts to psychologically break them down, because they all of a sudden have this identity and self-worth which is damaged. And when that pressure comes in, becomes a little bit of a problematic of who they are and how they define themselves to be. Now, this is a really important one, because you might separate who you are from what you do, and that allows for a more healthier coping strategy after setbacks or even the reduces of fear and failure. There's loads of examples where players who suffer from injury can't refine psychologically back to that person who they were, and that is a damaging element of kind of conflict and adjustment issues psychologically. So just to conclude, the evidence really suggests that talent is only a starting point, and athletes fail not because of the lack of ability, but because they fall into the psychological and environmental traps which we've spoken about. And by addressing these factors, we can increase your ability to become a talented athlete and also fulfill your potential. Now, you might be on this journey of becoming an athlete, you might already be an athlete and you want to push your boundaries further, and that's absolutely fine. So watch this video to learn how you can become more confident and develop your game further to become the best you. Thank you for watching.